परफेक्ट डिसीजन मेकिंग और बिजनेस ग्रोथ के लिए हम आपके साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर आपकी स्वप्न पूर्ति करते हैं। स्त्रोत कंसल्टेक, सिनर्जाइजिंग ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन।
Hi, this is Shirish Kulkarni, founder and CEO of STROTA Consultech Business Consulting, focused on small and medium businesses in India right now, helping small and medium businesses to stabilize, grow, looking at going global to really impact the market in a bigger way. In this initiative called as HATKE, we have been talking to various eminent personalities across the world, those who have mattered for the world, those who have had different thought processes, looked at the world in a different way, got different experiences to share. And, we are moving our focus more on future, how future will shape up as we speak. And we have a great honor to have Bradley Emerson with us. Bradley, great to have you on this platform.
Namaskar, Shirish, and it's absolute honor to be on your show.
Wonderful, wonderful. And somebody who has spent more than around 20 years in focused area of finance, like banking, 12 more years where there is a switch, and you find him into education, has his own YouTube channel, has his own podcast, maybe 20 odd podcasts are already posted, working on his own book. What I can say, to have a better person than you, Bradley, to be actually talking to.
I'm absolutely humble. These are very little things. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who have done much more than that.
Right. So, going on that swing only, as such, we are looking at HATKE in Hindi or in Maharashtrian Indian language. It is meaning differentiated, unique, right? And I find you very resourceful, absolute person to go to, individual who is pumped up, done so many initiatives, switching from one career line to other career line, and maybe found yourself a path to your potential maybe later. So maybe you can highlight certain things that you want to do so that others find that path earlier.
I think thanks for that. My first turning point goes back to my school days. I mean, I have been not the best of students in school, right? I was focusing more on sports, and if someone has heard by the principal who is telling, I don't want to see you in these premises ever again, when you are leaving the school, I was one of them.
Oh.
What happened to us is that I got suspended in school, messing up with something, and then we were very, very humble beginnings. We were struggling to actually meet ends during that time. My father was a northerner. He married out at caste, and you know how it works. He was completely kept out of the family. Okay. And then he had 4 children to bring up, and then we were struggling, and he was a government employee. And I remember once in school, we were asked not to come to school without the school fees.
Okay.
And I couldn't come and tell my mom at that time, and she didn't have any jewelry to pawn at that time, and that's what she could do. And I didn't go to school, and I told my mom it's on study leave, so I didn't go to school. But I went for cricket practices. I passionately played that game. That's the only game I was able to represent in school. So I went for practice. I was coming back. I could see my Reverend Brother Marcus, supervisor, was sitting in the hall, and my mother was standing. And I thought, oh my God. So he just did like this and said, why aren't you in school? So then my mother looked at me and looked at him and said, brother, he said, you're on study leave. He said, what study leave? This is midterm. Exams are way away from now. There's no study leave. Then she asked, what's going on, son? Then I said, this is what happened. The class teacher said not to come to class without fees. And mid-month, I can't ask you for fees. So I didn't want to burden. So I didn't say anything. But something that happened at that moment, Srish, I sometimes get emotional talking about this. And my mother fell on his feet and said, please give him education. See, that moment was the turning point. And then the school actually waived off my fees for the rest of my time in the school. And she said, even my father used to say, only wealth we can give you is education. And what you do with that is up to you. So that was the first moment which, completely turned your thinking that if someone could just give up the dignity and fall in the feet of another just for the sake of the child's education. I think that's a lot to ask. So that made a very deep mark in me. And then I realized she wants us to find our potential. I mean, all what she could give at that time, even at the cost of her own dignity, is education. So that was the turning point. That was deeply engraved in my mind. I mean, every time this comes to my mind, that parents give up everything, including their dignity, if they can bring in education for children. So it started with that. And then I got into banking, progress in my career. And I think around when I was about 30, 33, 34, I remember at one of the training programs, I was telling the guys, I want to be CEO before 40. I want to run the bank the way I want, in my beliefs, my own conviction. But I got there when I was 45.
Okay.
Right. So I looked at the bank structure, and so it's probably same in the Indian banking industry. You got to work in one level for X number of years, and when I looked at it, I wouldn't have been a CEO even at 58. So I thought this is not going to work. I got to really detour and get somewhere fast. So I moved out from the bank after working there for a long time, and then I went into a bank called National Trust Bank as head of operations. And from there, you got to get into the C-suite if you want to become CEO. And then I moved to Pan Asia Bank, which was at that time, I'm talking 2003, was about to collapse. And they advertised for a CEO designate. They didn't want to even mention the name of the bank. They were so ashamed. But of course, banking in Sri Lanka being small and you had your network, you knew who the bank was. I applied and they called me for an interview. And when I told my CEO I'm going to an interview at Pan Asia Bank, he said, did you see their balance sheet? They're the next one to crash. I said, yes, I have seen their balance sheet. And when I got selected, I came and told him, the reason why I'm going to accept this is you can't take it any further down. It's at the rock bottom. And there was the current, probably the richest man in Sri Lanka was, Dhammika Pereira was the man behind that they brought. He was looking for people to turn around. So I took that challenge. And we turned that bank around in 3 years. I still remember I told the Singapore story to the staff, entire staff. I brought them and said, this is what Singapore was, this is what Singapore is. They had no resources at all. They had leadership and the belief of the people that they can become world's number one. I can remember there were 200 people in the audience said, do you believe Pan Asia can turn around? And I could hear them say yes. So that energy is another turning point. Then I realized that I had something that I can, get people to believe in and then harness that. While in Pan Asia Bank, I got headhunted for CIMA, which was an educational institute, Chartered Institute of Management Accountant of UK. And when this friend of mine, Fayaz Salih, who's a famous headhunter, bumped into me and asked me, you've been in the banking industry, why don't you change the industry? I said, where do you want me to do?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he said, I mean, it's not, this is exactly my word stretch. I said, this is not big enough for me.
Okay.
These are my words. So he said, there are two ladies here. They've been looking for a country head. They have seen about 18, 20 people. They're not happy. I can just have a chat.
Okay. Explore.
Okay. Nothing lost. So let's have it. So I met two ladies called Haley McDonald and what's the other lady? It's not coming to my head. Kathy Grimshaw.
Okay.
Right. We had a chat and then had a conversation. And Kathy Grimshaw was the head of international markets. And she was impressed. She said, 48 hours from now, I'm going to fly in the CEO to have a chat with you. And they gave me 48 hours to write a plan to revive CIMA in Sri Lanka. Then I know CIMA is a qualification. I know people who do, my friends have done, but I didn't see it as a business at all. Went and collected all the data and then made a presentation to Charles Tilley, the CEO, who flew in to have a chat with me. And my first slide was, what is CIMA story? You have been here for 40 odd years. What is your story? And he looked at me and he gave me a very interesting answer. He said, I'm looking for someone to write that.
Excellent.
So that's how it started. So within 6 months, they made me the regional director, because I on my own went to Maldives, created the impact. So they said, okay, open out and do it. I had a fantastic boss called Rick Sturge. He said, don't be restricted by your JD.
Uh-huh.
Every business wants revenue. So go beyond. Take a flight. Go, if you bring revenue, it's write your own JD. This is exactly what he said. We tend to sort of limit ourselves to our JDs.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, write your own JD. So within 6 months, I was made regional director. I looked after markets called South Asia, Middle East, and Northeast, right? Mesana. So that is from Kathmandu to Cairo.
Oh.
So all grace of God, I traveled. I've seen those countries. I've spoken to children. I've done many interviews in all these countries. I've presented papers. And I realized that the future of this world lies in the mindsets of our children. And if you can get them in the right track, and our region, particularly South Asia, has the numbers. We have the numbers. I mean, the subcontinent put together, we have something like 2 billion people.
Absolutely.
Of the 2 billion, this is what is more interesting. Nearly 50% of the people are under the age of 30. So we are not only voluminous, we are also youthful.
Young.
So here lies the future of the global talent.
Wonderful.
And if I can do something for them, I thought you have achieved some part of purpose of your life. So that has been my journey. I love the last bit of what I did. Education. I still in education. I love to teach, try to change people's thinking. So if you ask me, what is your purpose today? Why do you wake up in the morning? I would say to help people find their potential.
Right. Wonderful. I think that's really is a great purpose to not only, in every interaction that I found that you definitely look at avenues, not only for revenues, but definitely avenues for multiplying the strengths that we have around. Now, as the CEO of Imperial Institute of Higher Education, you would have so many avenues for where you can connect the educational world to the real world, right? Let it be, realistic projects that could be running, consulting projects could be running, some business aspect could be running, where you will have to see the students getting ready for industry. So many of such thoughts would be in your mind, right? Right now, as we speak, to really take a stab into the future.
Yes. See, the challenge all education institutes face today is to prepare the people for jobs that are still not there. So that's the challenge. So we have been, I mean, you and I have gone through the same way of learning. We are taught the same way pretty much by filling in our heads with knowledge. They were pouring it in. And they would see whether I can remember, I can recall and reproduce what was poured in. So that has been the system. Today, the knowledge is out there, Srish. The knowledge is out there in an enormous quantum, right? I mean, yes. But then what do we teach students? How do we teach students? How do you assess their learning? Right. I think it should happen right from the bottom, but at least we're starting at the mid-level. It comes down to cognitive skills. There is ample knowledge. How can you understand that? How do you draw insights? How do you connect it to the present and to the future? And how do you apply that? I think that's what education, the challenge of education today is. But sadly, we are feeling the mind still. Rather, we should be shaping their minds to be agile and apply the insights to different situations. So that is where I am in terms of education. I have certain opportunities to influence the thought leaders in this country, the policymakers. It's very hard. Particularly people in the academic area don't see that. And as a result, having said that this region has the most youthful population, and they could easily become, given the age structures and the demographics of the rest of the world, Sirish. Here lies the resources of the world of tomorrow. So what do we do with them? How best are we preparing them? How do we teach them? How do we assess their learning? What is learning today? What is learning today? So we need to look at that. So to me, learning today is what I told you. How do I draw insights from what is out there? How do I relate it to a current situation? And how do I draw foresights from that?
Perfect.
And where do I get the energy and the courage and the conviction to translate that foresight into action? So to me, that's an educated person.
I think this is a perspective which is very, very important for education. And I just like that aspect of not just filling, but shaping, making it ready to be served to wherever it is supposed to be consumed, like the industry. That's an amazing way of looking at it. I think as we were talking about shaping maybe the fresh MBA minds for being ready for launching themselves as in the space to be ready for the industry, ready in the form of business acumen, business consulting, business advisory positions, or having entrepreneurs to be able to be made capable to be reforming themselves, looking at their businesses in a different way. I believe you have some thought process about, and I've picked up that line from you: survive, revive, and thrive. Right? That's the mantra that you have. So maybe you can throw some light on that. That's amazing, insightful.
See, the whole three words that you use, survive, revive, thrive, is pretty much connected to the pandemic that is happening. I want to just park it for now. You made a very interesting point, Sirish. You talked about entrepreneurial skills. You know, no economy in the world creates the number of jobs to match the number of graduates passing out of universities.
Yeah.
So then the word entrepreneurial comes into play. You need to have just not having the knowledge, but also has the courage. You know, I heard somebody saying in the meeting that you and I were jointly present, he said, startups don't fail, entrepreneurs give up.
Right.
So that's very important to bring out. I mean, even at our age today, we are recovering that buried skill of doing something different. Not necessarily, I like the word you use, the phrase that you should, if I may borrow that from you, avenues for revenue. I like that. It is not avenues for revenue. It is avenue to contribute to humanity. Entrepreneurs come up, money comes eventually, but they see an issue, they see a problem, they come out to do that. So where do we go from here? If you looked at how do I look at the MBAs become relevant? So I said that challenges universities and education institute right from the bottom has is preparing people for jobs that are not there. So how do you shape their minds? So you need to create agility, you need to make them adaptable. So they need to be confident that they can adapt. Where does that come from? So if you look at what's happening in Germany, Finland, and Singapore, they moved away from classroom and exams to experiential learning. They're looking at design thinking, they're looking at collaborative skills. So the whole skill set that has come out is problem solving. So this is where they're taking them, because if I test you, for something, I mean, I'll give you a simple example. Sometimes my son comes up and asks me, and when I pause to think, he said, "Don't worry, I'll ask Siri."
Oh.
So, and Siri is there, and Siri gives the answer. Siri gives not one, Siri gives so many answers.
In answers, maybe, yeah.
Right. So in a world that there is knowledge out there, that the kids are getting used to that, how do you make them relevant to business? So it comes down to the mindset. The structures, has gone apart with COVID. What we were used to. So the challenge for us is not to me, the crisis has brought in opportunity. The crisis has got us to rethink revive.
Revive.
We have
Exactly.
survived 1 year, right? We have the waves come and go, but then humanity will survive. Humanity will survive. I mean, pandemics are not new. I mean, these have happened, right? People have survived. Crises have come. Crises will come, but humanity will survive. The issue is every time we survive, we revive. Every time we survive, we revive. So I remember we just marked almost 75 years of the Second World War. The speech given by Winston Churchill, he said, "Welcome to the new norm." This was then in 1949 or 1950. He said, "Welcome to the new norm."
Wow.
And here, 75 years later, we are talking about a new norm. So it comes down to human adaptability. So it's not the shape anyway. It's not what we do. To me, it's more how we do in a new world. That is where the mind comes in. So to answer your question, the entire thinking process has changed. We have moved to a situation where we are challenged to be a catalyst. Everyone, a crisis to me brings a catalyst. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. Crisis brought a catalyst, and it transformed the entire equation. So there are people who I admire. Mahatma Gandhi is one. I read his life story. Then Lee Kuan Yew is another,
Nelson Mandela,
who has inspired me from very young age. The whole making of the Singapore story. So transformation doesn't happen without a crisis or a catalyst. So why waste a good crisis? If I may put it that way, right? What can we do here? What can we do differently? It is not the structures, it's a mindset. So we need to ask ourselves, how do we get through this? Not how do we get through this, but what do we change to ride this? So that's where the whole thinking process is.
Right. I think it is amazing way to look at this crisis as almost kept on the table as an opportunity, and we are kind of ready to really pump up, jump on it, and transform that into a number of ways that we can convert that into new ways. Because now there are no inhibitions. We are all equals as humans.
Absolutely.
We are grounded. There is nobody who is like a big corporate. Everybody has the basic fear about their life or their own being or their business not being there tomorrow.
Yes.
So I think that equality, sense of equality, definitely has pushed us to that level where we have to innovate. We have to look at different ways, aspect in which we'll not only survive, thrive, but also we need to find out ways in which we will grow further.
That's right.
I believe that is as a thrive part that is going to be there, and I'm sure that you would have a lot of ideas onto that. Now, moving forward, you want to comment on that?
No, it's pretty good. I mean, I was thinking a metaphor when you said we are made equal. We are all under starters orders. Again, we all get set. You're waiting for the gunshot to fire, and you're right. The race ahead of us is not going to be run the way it was in the past. It's different, and we are all looking inward. We're all focusing on our own economies. We're all focusing on our own self and our own families. So it's an inward looking, and there was an article to say, is globalization over? Because all are looking inward. But I think it's truly globalized. And right now, you and I are talking. It's truly globalized. So it has brought in. So I think to answer to that is not what will be, but rather what should it become. So be it a company, be it an individual, be it a country, I think the equation is that we need to think about our jobs differently, our businesses differently. For example, Sri Lanka used to send a lot of housemaids to the Middle East. This crisis has brought them all back. And these are people who have taken care of elders, who have done. So on the other hand, what do we do with these people? Can we convert them to caregivers? That market is huge. That's about a 500 and by 2027, they say it's going to be about $234 billion business. Right. So here, this is what I'm talking about. That revenue line has gone. Using the same resources, can I make another revenue line?
Another revenue. Exactly.
This is what businesses should be doing. Can I revive the business model? What are my new revenue streams? How do I sustain those revenue streams? Because we talked about it before, pre-recording, about the SWOT. Now, December 19, all the companies must have done their strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat now.
Right.
What happened to that in February, March? What happened to your threat? What happened? Out of the window. Out of the window. So today there is a new opportunity. There's a new strength we have found. We have been able to collaborate. We are able to work with each other. So you have gone to a point where what can put us out of business, then who can put us out of business? Earlier, we were focusing on our competitors. Today, we have to see what is going to put us out of business. Because everybody's command, as you rightly said, equal, starters orders.
Absolutely.
So the focus is not who is my competitor, but what will put me out of business. So that process mindset has come in. So if we thought we all can come back after COVID and life is going to be normal,
no.
Welcome to a new world. You'll be surprised what's staying out there.
I think
this virus has made us imagine possibilities. What was impossible has become thinkable. Right. Okay, let's put it that way.
True.
If it is thinkable, then it will become doable. So that's what this crisis has done.
So I think what I'm hearing is whatever, if you are able to bring that thought, articulate it appropriately, and it is something that one has a conviction behind, it is a reality. There's something that I have experienced myself. Maybe it's something that you would also resonate in the way that if you bring that the plan which is absolutely clear and with full of conviction, I think it is going to become true. So as you're rightly pointing out, that even if you get a thought, it would be a reality in future.
Absolutely. What was impossible has become thinkable.
Right. Wonderful. So now going to a little bit of your persona and finding out what keeps you so pumped up, energized. I see you are a pretty fit person. You have been exercising regularly. So, what is behind that regime that you are having where you put those energies? Where do you get it?
Interesting. See, there are a lot of people who have inspired, and I have been from pretty early stage, middle age. I've been pretty focused on how we look after our bodies, because this is where we live for the rest of our life, all our life. So that's a temple. So we need to make sure that is venerated and looked after.
Wonderful.
The second thing is I have a massive thirst for knowledge. Because I had to start work early because the reasons why I told you. I never went to university because I had to work to support the family. Soon after my advanced level, I had to stop doing that because I had two more siblings after me. So they had to complete studies and get into a better place. So I never went into university. My MBA is post my banking. So I did banking diploma, and then through that and I went in to do the MBA. So I had this, this gap, this grudge, that I didn't have the knowledge, but I had that grudge. Grudge motivates from childhood. It motivates. It was there. So I had this, thirst, the hunger to knowledge. And if the kids today have so much of knowledge at their fingertips, and at those days we have to subscribe to magazines, we have to read books, get memberships in libraries to get knowledge. So what pumps you up now is the amount of catching up that I do in terms of knowledge. And then I can pick little things from even from a movie when I watch, there is something that triggers me. And I can pick something and I can resonate that, I can build on that. So I have that open-mindedness that everything that one would say. Now, see, I picked what you said, avenues for revenue. I thought that's amazing line. So I have that the kingfisher mindset. You know, you fly, you see a fish, you drop, pick it up, and you keep flying.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing. So I went and did a course on speed reading because I wanted to read more.
Wow.
Because Suresh, when you are hungry, you eat fast. Right? When we don't do the same thing for our mental hunger, right? We don't read fast, no. We say, okay, let's read later. But when it comes to feeding our stomachs, we don't say, let me eat later. We don't do that, right? We eat fast if you don't have time. But so I did that because I thought there's so much knowledge out there. I got to learn that. So that knowledge, without my realizing it, began to give me that edge. I realized I was getting recognized. I realized I was able to talk in a group with data. So obviously it prompted me to get in and share that knowledge. So I started, I was invited to be a podcaster in Sri Lanka, Pod Sri Lanka. Then when I was in IIM Bangalore, I met this Professor Agrawal. And you asked what triggers, as everybody triggers in interactions, right? And then this professor asked me once, so what is your role, Bradley, in the bank? So I obviously, like most of us, I said I'm a senior manager operations. He said, no, that's your designation. What's your role?
What do you do?
What is your role? He was beginning to think, what is your role? And he said something that triggered me, which I ended up writing this book called Role Diagnosis. He said, a lot of people, and it's a beautiful professor, Professor Agrawal. I can picture him while I speak. He said, a lot of people don't understand the role. There's a difference between your role and your designation. And he said, an actor, if you say, what are you doing? He said, I'm an actor. But he takes different roles in different stage plays or movies. But he will understand, he'll diagnose a role, and he will bring that role to life. And he said, in our careers, we play different roles. We change jobs, we get promoted, we change industry. But do we pause to understand, diagnose the role? How do I bring it to life? So that's something that made me write this book and also made me think every time I engage. There's something that comes to my mind that triggers, I don't know, it might be something that comes from your childhood, your grudge, you've been deprived, that comes through. So you look for, so I read vividly. I listen to books sometimes when I can't read. And that has given me, to some extent, that I can openly discuss with someone whenever somebody says, can you have a conversation about this? I would find. So today, Sirish, knowledge is not what you know. Knowledge is knowing where to find it. Right? And more importantly, how can you articulate and relate it to a conversation? That's the cognitive skills I talked to you about. So that comes with interaction. So people must have, you ask, what do I tell the young people?
Right.
Whether it's entrepreneurs or a business person as an executive, you need to be able to develop that cognitivity in you. That's what's going to make you different. As a nation, as a society, as a company, collectively, if we can develop that cognitivity, where we bring foresights based on what we understand. Cognitivity what? Operationalizing your understanding. If I put it simply, right? So if you can develop that, then you have to understand. You have to spend time to understand. Then you bring your learning to, knowledge is only as good as its application. So it's a pity that we are in this stage of life, but the young people they have enormous amount of knowledge out there. Reach out, read out, bring it to life. So then you are leaving something, because every society is morally obliged to make the other society better. Every civilization has done that in the past. That's where we are. Right. And I think we owe it to the next civilization to give them a better place to live. So if we have that motive or drive, then we will realize, as you rightly said, if we, from where we are in our vintage, had this exposure slightly earlier, then we could have done better. So if you look at it, and we talked about the universe having its own logic, why do you think life expectancy has increased?
Mhm.
My humble view is to give you and I an opportunity to catch up on what we have missed out, so
And
that
keep
we
contributing.
leave something better to the next civilization.
I like that
That's
perspective.
my logic.
I just love it. I just like it. I think you made a lot of very good points. Let me just quickly say that first point. I just love it. I've wrote it down. Is body is a temple. So exercise. Make sure that you give that due to your body, which is the temple. I mean, what sacred representation that you can give it to. It's wonderful. The way that I saw a thirst or the differences of potential that you got created in the maybe childhood where you were deprived of doing something, translating that into positivity to read it voraciously now when it matters and when you could matter. It is amazing concept. Making knowledge as power, and knowledge not as a bookish knowledge or not as a book, but translated that into application oriented view where it matters for the reality. Let it be business, your education, wherever you are, unless that reaches to matter and change certain things in the real life. That's how it is. I think the concept of role diagnosis. I was just reading about that, and the paradigm that you got about a bubble. If you want to grow it, you have to maintain the pressure inside and outside.
Oh, you read that?
Amazing, amazing power. I would definitely look up and read that book myself. So Bradley, wonderful to have you around, and it is full of we. I just felt like we should not stop at all. We can talk forever because it is just a chain of thoughts and knowledge that we are sharing. Anything that you want to say as a conclusion, Bradley?
See, Suresh, every conversation depends on how provocative the questions are. So it's you who made this conversation what it is, right? So I thank you for that. You got me thinking. You brought in something maybe I brought out that never occurred to me in my normal thought process. So, I mean, I have just listed down few things that I want to, at parting, things I want to give you. It says you talked about future. I think you need to have a proper outlook of the future,
Mhm.
right? You need to go there in your mind and look back. How do I move there? You go to the future and then you see the path. You won't see the path from where you are. So outlook, how you are. Then a crisis does not change us. It reveals us. It reveals the true potential of us.
Right.
Then uncertainty and ambiguity is what our ancestors thrived on. And that is not unusual. So that's the reality. That's your comfort zone. If you
Right.
can't find comfort in uncertainty, then you're not doing fairness by humanity. Then I said, be brutally honest to yourself about the situation. Be open to people. That's what I've done in our company. That's what I do to people. You've got to be brutally honest. Otherwise, you take wrong action. And focus on the emotional balance sheet. Most of the company CEOs are trying to catch up the losses.
Mhm.
But you got to understand the people have their own fears, own anxieties. People have lost jobs. They have lost domestic aid in their houses. So there is an emotional balance sheet. On one side, you have the fears on the liability side, the potential on the asset side. So we need to focus on that. But a lot of CEOs are doing catch up. They're pushing these people who are, it's like, keeping a racehorse in the stable and putting him on the track. He will break his legs.
Yeah.
Right? You had to train them.
Train
You had
them.
to get them ready for that. So I think CEOs need to be patient. You can catch up, but what is important is to retain the resources as the belief and the inner strength, emotional strength. And more than anything, today you have to look after your health. Today it is top of your agenda. So you got to make sure your immunity is looked after, get out of the gym, sweat it out, stretch, be toned, because and I'm talking of mental health as well, not just physical.
Right.
So if you keep your mind, and people ask, how do you remain youthful? I tell them, I keep my mind occupied. Then the body follows, because the body and the brain both are slaves of your mind, Srishti. So
Right.
if you can keep your mind occupied, you can remain very useful. And so that's my parting words. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You got me thinking. As I said, every conversation will depend on how provocative the questions are. So hats off to you. And I'm sure your channel is where it is because of your ability to bring the best out of the people who are on your show.
Wonderful,
So well
I
done.
think. Thanks for those nice words. Actually, I just play the mirror role where I'm showing different ways. Maybe I'm a curved mirror. I take different shapes. Sometimes I have to magnify, sometimes I have to reflect, sometimes I have to actually go to micro level. And that's what is actually helping, where it is a mutually kind of insightful and very, very, very satisfying kind of a conversation. So wonderful points that you made. Again, I would like to highlight is rather than just to do, being operational, it is to be in the future and then start doing what is that where you are. I think that's wonderful thing that you told. Change is only constant. There is opportunity in everything, all disaster or all changes that are going to be there. And I think final point, which is also part of the acronym HATKE, HATKE, health, is the first character that we have. And you said health is the key to success, is something that we have to invest on. Wonderful. I'm so happy that we could have this conversation, Bradley. Many thanks to you.
Thank you very much, and all the best for HATKE. I think it's a fantastic concept. When you explained the title, I was so inspired because it's meaningful. It is not an avenue for revenue, but as an avenue for exchange of will and knowledge. It's amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and all of our best wishes for you to definitely thrive in all the concepts that you are toying with, all the initiatives that you are putting on your personal as well as professional fronts. And may your health be as beautiful and as sacred as temple as you're praying for it. So best of lucks and best wishes for you, Bradley. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Likewise. Do stay safe.
Thank you.
बिजनेस कोई भी हो, सक्सेस की नींव हम रखते हैं।
बुलंदियों को छूने की आपके अरमानों की उम्मीद जगाती जोत है, हर सपनों का हम स्रोत है।
सही स्ट्रेटेजी, परफेक्ट डिसीजन मेकिंग और बिजनेस ग्रोथ के लिए हम आपके साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर आपकी स्वप्न पूर्ति करते हैं। स्त्रोत कंसल्टेक, सिनर्जाइजिंग ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन।